then after that I told him, like, it's an Africa twin. So dad being dad, research. And I got a call. Yeah, I just read it is at 17, 18 lakhs for a bike. That's not the one, right? That's the one. Silence for some good 10 seconds. I told Papa, I know you won't understand. And it's okay to not understand. It's alright. I've already booked it. It's coming. And don't worry about it. I think somewhere once you see it, you may like it.
You said so many things which were very intriguing. Like, all of us have a dream like that.
Yeah.
When we are so young, at some point we want to own a Porsche, like, or somebody wants to own their dream bike. Like, we all have our love at first sight bikes, but we are unable to muster the courage to go and take that test drive because somewhere we are afraid that if we start liking it so much and develop an obsession for owning it, how does the practicality of it will work? And then there is this template that once you get married, you have to buy a house and you have to do so many other things and live that template life, and you again short circuited and started living your dreams sooner than many people would have done otherwise.
Maybe.
So tell us a little bit more about the practicality aspect of it. Like, as I mentioned, a lot of people, we all love something so badly, but we do not take that first step because all that practicality, so-called practicality, is riding our heads. Is it a crazy bad decision that you are regretting? Why did I take this? Or is it just okay? Or it's been amazing electric and you recommend everybody to go ahead and chase?
The only thing that I would recommend is follow your dreams, follow your passion, because that's who you are. If you're seeking fulfillment in life, happiness is different, fulfillment is different. So I think, like, what I'm looking for is fulfillment in life. And when you have choices to make those choices which are, number one, if you're kind to yourself, you will hear your voice. And there are, you mentioned something about responsibilities, right? I always thought I was someone who ran away from responsibilities, and I used to feel guilty at some point of time. In between, I tried doing a lot of things after marriage, and I failed royally. I mean, it's a surprise how this marriage is still intact, And I mean, thanks to a lot of people around. I mean, they were patient with me while I was failing, and they were able to guide me as well. So one thing that I always, my family, my in-laws, they could not digest the fact when I was about to pick up this bike. They, like you said, they wanted us to, invest in something which is for the long term, like buy a house. So the one thing that I looked at is, let's say I have a house at home. Financially, that we are in an okay place right now. There is a smaller house again with a farm and all right now again. This is all after dad's retirement that we were able to get all of this or buy all of this, right? And let's say people come with an expiry date.
Yeah.
House, I think, is built for a good 100 odd years, right? So it's beyond my expiry date as well. And I don't know, like say like if I have a kid, if the kid wants to occupy that house or what he wants to do with it, he or she. And similar thing about me as well, because I don't know where I will be another 5 years down the lane. So the way I've seen responsibilities is if it makes sense for me, just because someone said so, I may not follow it. It has to make sense. It may be making sense for 99% of the people, but that does not mean that I have to make that same choice. So I didn't make those choices. On a funny, one of those funny incidents, we were about to book a house during the pandemic, and for some reason, after the final negotiation, we kind of backed off. And that construction is almost over, and it's visible from my brother-in-law's house, and my father-in-law was around. I called him up, do you want to see 1.4 CR for saving? He's like, where? Like, you see that apartment over there? That's the one that we were about to book. That's the saving that I'm talking about. So that's, I would say, like, even though they were not able to warm up to the idea, they were kind of like supportive. They understood. And I have tried to be as authentic as possible, true to myself rather. Then I think people will understand. If people don't understand, that's not my problem. I cannot control how a person feels.
Yeah, absolutely.
So responsibility, be it your career choices, I think you only have to prove to yourself. You can only control how you feel and what you do. How others feel, how others think about you. While it sounds great, I am still working on it. I must say that it's not in your control.
Yeah. So, Abhay, like a very related question. In places where we work, we see people buying their first house, their second house, creating a FOMO, prices going up, Bangalore will be unaffordable. How do you deal with that? Like, what's your response to that? Because it's very common, like all of your friends, your colleagues, you've been to certain housewarming parties and all, and not just houses, but like people chasing that template, and you are 90 degrees to that template, doing something which you don't see. Like, how do you deal with this every day, or you just don't deal with it? You decide to.
No, I let people talk. Then I do what I want. It's pretty simple, because if that brings a sense of security and happiness for that person, happy for you, man. Do it. If that brings a lot of debt and worry and a situation wherein which I'm thinking every now and then, how am I going to repay this? How am I going to do that? And if it comes at the cost of my dreams, then that takes a back seat for me. I'm a little hesitant to do that. It does not mean that you're not available for a person. If I say that, like, I understand we are talking about materialistic things. But people are different. I keep people out of the equation. I'm talking about materialistic stuff. So in that, I have a 1.4 CR ka house. I did the math, and it wasn't make sense for me, because I don't know if it is even going to beat the inflation. Number one, in Bangalore, I was convinced about buying a land, and my dad was buying a land, and then he bought it. I was like, then fine, then I'm not buying a land. You bought it. It's there. Let it be there, right? So that made sense, because it's good to have clean water, clean air, etc., for you, if it's possible. And so when my friends, etc., they were buying these houses and buying multiple houses, I was always intrigued about what drove them. Try to understand their perspective. But their perspective was always different from mine. So what motivated them is not the thing that motivates me. So I'm happy for them, for their choices, but it's not for me. So that's where I kind of tried understanding in depth their decision making process. Then after that, if it's not for me, it's not for me. I'm out.
Awesome. Great learning, by the way. One thing with, let me call it fancy cars and bikes, a lot of finance gurus call them depreciating assets. I, for the life of it, haven't been able to figure that out. Is it good to have a depreciating asset? Financially, it will never make sense. Have you been in any such conversations trying to explain that? Why did you acquire a depreciating asset in the form of your Honda Africa Twin?
A lot, actually. In fact, my dad, he retired as a TGM finance, very binary in how he sees money, wealth, and all of it. So I remember telling him, I'm buying a bike. And I said, "Oh. Then which one?" He's like, "I won't say, because I know what's coming." Then he said, "How much is it?" I'm like, "It's pretty expensive. 5 lakhs, huh?" Then again it's in multiplication factors of 5. They're like, "Are you going to say it to me?" You're like, "Little, I'm just warming you up." ये first trailer है, दूसरा trailer अभी आने वाला है. Then after that I told him, like, it's an Africa Twin. So dad being dad, research. And I got a call. "Hey, I just read it is at 17-18 lakhs for a bike. That's not the one, right?" "That's the one." Silence for some good 10 seconds. I told Papa, I know you won't understand. And it's okay to not understand. It's alright. I've already booked it. It's coming. And don't worry about it. I think somewhere once you see it, you may like it. So by then, I think my dad was kind of okay with me being one of those gone kids, lost case, whatever, and made his own decisions, etc., etc. And so I think it kind of fit in the pattern. This is decision making as well. This guy gone case, abhi kuch bhi kar raha hai types. So that's what it is. But later on, I knew that when I took the bike, so my dad, he had a heart attack like a couple of weeks back, and 4-5 days in hospital, sleep deprived. But we had planned Diwali at home, and I was supposed to ride there, show him the bike. So came back home after discharge, getting discharged from hospital. Saturday evening we were home. I got a night ka bus, reached here in the morning. Afternoon I picked up the bike, reached back the next day, Sunday evening, late night I was back. Next day morning I remember my dad, I'm seeing this through the window, walking around the bike and just admiring it. Then I switched it on, then explained the entire features of it and how it works, and I could see that his entire demeanor changed. So I think, like how we say in Amazon, right? You should be okay with being misunderstood for a long time. It's okay.
Yeah.
But later on, now he loves the bike.
Nice.
He absolutely loves the bike. Initially, he used to say like what is the speed, maximum speed. I did not hold back. I told him 270. He gave me a look. Like, just because it goes 270 does not mean I want to ride 270. I will ride basis my capacity. So yeah, that's what it is. And now he is happy, he's comfortable. Before that, he used to be pretty nervous, not okay. Now he's comfortable. I think he loves the bike.
Very nice, okay. So a related question. When I was in a similar spot, you know what, I had 50-50 kind of a feeling. 50% of me wanted it, and 50% of me was trying to look for some validation. So I used to show up in these showrooms, do a test drive, tell them who am I, what do I do, and ask a question, do people like me buy things like these? They used to say no. I said, who are your customers? They said industrialists, real estate, politicians, and maybe like one or two like you in a year. That used to make me nervous because there was no validation available.
Yeah, I mean, that's a strong word. Yeah.
Were you nervous, or you were very confident, like, yes, I know I'm doing the right thing? Because a part of me did not know what am I getting into. There are scary stories everywhere, right? These things break down, they cost a bomb. Everything about these things is expensive.
Absolutely.
Was there nervousness, and how did you deal with it? Like,
nervousness, no. For some reason, when I took a test ride, it was an instant click. I was like, oh my god, this is it. It was beautiful connection. And I could feel it. I could see myself riding, not just on the highways, in the traffic. And by the way, I take my bike to office almost every day.
Nice.
In the Bangalore traffic. And I could feel it like, this is an everyday bike. It's not just a fancy bike. It's an everyday bike with massive capabilities. That's the way I see it. With respect to validation, I did not look for validation because I was so used to going the 90-degree Teda wala path. So that's, like I said, I listen to people, try understanding their perspective with utmost sincerity because I genuinely want to understand their perspective. Then if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense for me. And maybe because most of the rides that I used to go and the trips that I've done mostly were solo. So I was comfortable living a life on my own, and it was a very fulfilling life, not because I was on my own, because I knew that I was not alone. I may be alone as such. I think I would say that I was maybe alone, but I wasn't lonely. There were a lot of strangers They were strangers in the first 1 hour. After that, we became acquaintances, and some of them became good friends, really good friends now.
Nice.
So now I have like a lot of places where in which I can go. So because of that nature, I knew validation is not something that I may get. I do still struggle with that validation nature at my work, but I'm working towards it. That's something that I'm clearly working towards, and working towards making my own decisions and being okay with it, even at work. And so yeah, acceptance from very few people I looked at. One was my wife, because we were riding together.
Oh.
She's an amazing pillion, and she's learning to ride now, by the way. But she's an amazing pillion, the best pillion that I've had. Absolutely sits there, you won't feel it. In zone with a bike. And there was one time wherein a week before she said, I'm not sure if we need to buy this. And I remember almost having a crashing moment then. It doesn't make sense for me, because for me, if I have to invest so much, the pillion seat also, there were two bikes which I had in mind. One bike was yet to be launched, Yamaha Tenere T7, and that was not having a good comfortable pillion seat, but that was a solo rider's brilliant bike. And this one, the pillion mattered. When she said I felt a little off, then I asked her, like, do you think this feeling might change once you get together with the bike and so on and so forth? And she said, you know what, just follow it. Maybe I'm facing a certain moment, or it's getting overwhelming for me, because now that the paperworks are done, you look at the overall large sum, etc., etc. But once he said that, I had that faith, knowing her and not treating this particular instance in isolation. It may be overbearing for her, but she will warm up to it, and it's her choice at the end of the day. Whatever her choice is, I respect that. But luckily, yeah, she warmed up to it, and now she is absolute fan.
Great.
So yesterday we went to office together. She's a pillion. So now she looks forward to going on a ride.
Very nice.
So now it doesn't feel like something that we bought fancy. It's not there in my head as well. It's a utility, and it's a brilliant machine.
Nice. So that's the way to go about it. We had a lot of conversations which are head versus heart. We didn't call it like this, but you've always like followed the heart, a little bit of head. Like it's not like the head is completely sitting on the side and heart is guiding you. But what I'm hearing is it's like a mix of both. Like directionally, you know you're going to. And well, let me take this step and see how this.
So initially, I mean, I'll just put one point there, right? Initially, when I was making this choice, my way was to shut people off, be blind or be deaf, just walk. It didn't help, because somewhere you cut them off. I was more like a rebel mentality. Later on, there was something that I read somewhere that it's an amazing space to be in if you can entertain an idea without being so passionate about it, and entertain that thought. Then I realized at some point of time that I am curious by nature. Why not pick their brain? Why should I be having this colored vision that I made the decision, I want to protect it at all costs? And it's got its own set of other problems as well. Sometimes I feel like that relates to maybe some level of controlling nature, in which I want to protect what I have. So when I started entertaining people's thoughts and having genuine conversation, trying to understand their perspective, then I was in a position. Yes, I was in a flux after that, but I was more sure of the decisions that I made. Sometimes I dropped decisions, but many a times I went ahead with the decisions. And then validate or get as much information as possible if you are in such a dilemma, if you have information available. I think fact checking is a great piece. And then if it still makes sense, then pursue it.
Got it. And as we say in Amazon, you've been there for years, so you are baptized in that sense? Like one-way door decisions versus two-way door decisions?
Yeah.
So do you use that often? Like, can this be backtracked and undone?
Like that's a great point, man. I mean, the reason I think I stayed back in Amazon is it made me a better person. I was getting life skills without having to pay for it, but getting paid for it.
Absolutely.
So leadership principles, when I read it, I was kind of like hooked. Then I remember like sitting back after work, like that time it was in WTC, and initial days of Amazon, inspiring set of folks, fantastic atmosphere, and you were encouraged to be yourself. Those were the initial days of Amazon.in. And I remember going through Amazon Wiki and reading about these leadership principles and being so inspired by it. And then I was thinking about how does this translate into my everyday life. It actually made me a better person. And it gave me mechanisms to fact check.
Oh yes.
And also be in that same grove. You know, you don't have to carry a different personality to work or have a different personality at home. You could kind of like erase those wider lines into small ones, and now it's very thin line. Right now I think I keep crossing over both the sides.
Nice.
So yeah, mechanisms, the kind of mental models that they have, help me a lot, continues to help me. I think it's going ahead with me in the life.
Yeah, I regularly do disagree and commit whenever I have an argument with my wife. Like, I'm sure that's one learning that we all take from there.
And this is from the background. Do you know that this guy met his wife on a bike ride?
Oh,
Not on a bike ride.
Pushkar.
Yes. So, yeah, we met in Pushkar. So what happened is, I was supposed to be somewhere, did not happen. Again, one Amazonian hand is there involved because my manager said that, hey, you know what, there is some important announcement. I would love for you to be in office. That time I was in Ludhiana. I wanted to go to Banaras solo for New Year's.
so you had your bike in Ludhiana and you
I
were
was.
Oh,
Yeah.
You've always carried a bike wherever you are.
I mean, it wasn't like a planned thing or anything because I needed something for commutation.
Okay.
And there again, so that time I had the bike and I used to hit the mountains, go around, I mean, Spiti and, not Spiti, that time we did Ladakh. So, yeah, this time, since it was like 4-day, 5-day thing, right? Bike ride all the way to Banaras was not possible. You can just do a touch and go. So, tried booking for trains and they said like, you know, hey, you know what, you will have to cut short. And I said, okay, so and so. I got like 3 days or 4 days. Then I was just looking at trains, which is passing through Ludhiana that day. Then there was this train from Chandigarh going all the way to Ajmer, going through Ajmer, I guess, all the way to Ajmer. Got into it, went there to Pushkar. This was the second time I was in Pushkar, knew someone, was there. Last day, I went out, ventured out into a cafe. Then we met in a cafe there and we spoke and instant connection again happened. And I remember I was on a solo trip and she was on her solo trip as well. And we hugged. It felt different, the hug. And to call it poetically, and we still don't know what happened then. When it was magical. Something froze, instant connection. After that, I remember kind of like confessing and telling like I take my time with people, but this is something different. And trust me, I'm not looking for anyone right now. I'm so comfortable with myself. But then did not feel like a relationship. It was more about two people getting to know each other and then getting the best out of each other. And yeah, that's how we met. And that's a picture. Out of the Blue is the cafe. The cafe's name is Out of the Blue.
Oh, nice.
That's my friend who is a digital artist. He kind of like framed it and he heard the story, he framed the moment and gave it to us.